Hi guys, and welcome to this goal setting webinar. I'm going to go through why I thought this was an important webinar to go through. So let's just get straight into it. So the structure of today's webinar is going to look at the inspiration for this webinar, where the inspiration for this webinar came from, and also for the content as well. I'm going to look at what you're going to learn today. I'm going to do a summary. I'm going to give you some homework to do with goal setting. And then there'll be some time for some questions at the end. So where did the inspiration for this webinar come from? Well, I've got to say that it came from poor goal examples posted on Discord. And that's not to say like to, massively berate everyone out there who posted their goals on Discord, because some of them were really, really good. But there were some examples that were very poor. And I want to talk about why I think they were pretty poor. Okay. I also want to do it for this reason. I've got this desire to see more of you engage in your goals, posting goals, achieving your goals, so that you can dream bigger and basically get more out of poker, more out of life. And I'm going to show you why it's important to link poker and life in a little while. So then the inspiration for the sort of content of this webinar, I just want to sort of shout this out because I have taken some ideas and examples from two different books. One, of course, is this one here. Hopefully you can see it. Now, this isn't a webinar to promote the book. It's just that some of the information and ideas around goal setting appears in this book, Purposeful Practice for Poker, written by myself and Dr. Tricia Cardner. And then the next bit of inspiration, the second book, is this thing called an Inspire Now journal. So that's what this is. And this is just a brilliant, brilliant book. And I'll talk about that in more detail later on. So what we're going to learn today then is why setting goals is really important. We're going to look at the difference between outcome goals and process goals. We're going to look at areas to focus on when goal setting. And then I'm going to sort of show you and teach you and talk more about how to set smart goals and essentially how to write them. We're going to look at connecting poker goals to your non-poker goals and why that's important. And then I am going to give you some examples of bad goals and how to make them good, or how to make them better, maybe is a better way to say it. So why is setting goals important? Well, it allows you to focus on becoming the best version or vision of yourself. And they give you a way to work towards living your life the way that you choose. All right. And it also helps you with clarity, persistence, purpose, and focus. And I think these are really, really important things to think about. So what's the difference between long-term and short-term goals? So long-term goals then are the big picture goals that you give the overall, that kind of give you the overall outlook that help you determine your daily actions. So we've got the sort of the big picture, excuse me, big picture that we want to be thinking about here. So long-term goals are the ones you want to achieve in life in the next, say, 2 to 10 years. These long-term goals should be regularly reviewed because your circumstances can change. You might change job, you might change location, you might change relationship. All of these things can affect you moving forward and might scupper or change your plans or your goals. Short-term goals then are the smaller goals that you need to complete in order to achieve your long-term bigger picture goals. And the big goals are really just a sequence of smaller actions taken every single day to try and get you to those big goals. And then breaking those goals into smaller and more manageable tasks just helps you, breaking those goals into smaller, more manageable tasks that you can complete every single day makes your bigger goals much easier to achieve. So a quick question for you then. I'm going to give you 5 examples of goals, and I want you to tell me if they are an outcome goal or a process goal. So the first one then, win 25 grand playing poker this year. Is that an outcome goal or a process goal? Excellent. Okay, so everyone got that. This is an outcome goal for sure. What about study for 30 minutes before every session? Is that an outcome goal or a process goal? Okay. So I think we all went for process this time. Absolutely. On the whole, I think. Just having a quick look. Yep. Could make the case for either. Okay, fair enough. The next one then, lose £15. Is that an outcome goal or a process goal? Of course, it is an outcome. Play 400 tournaments every month. Is that an outcome or a process? Okay, similarly, bit of both, not really sure. Some saying process, some saying outcome. Interesting, yeah. So I think the sort of ambiguity of these kind of goals can lead us to sort of not really know whether it's an outcome or a process. So there's sort of somewhere in the middle. Going to the gym 4 times a week, is that process or outcome? And I think most of you have gone for process this time. Absolutely. Process in order to achieve dream body, be fit, be fitter, get in better shape. Absolutely. So you can look at all of these. So we could look at win 25 grand playing poker this year as an outcome, but then we could break it down and say, okay, what processes do we need to do? Like, what's the process for getting to that point? And we'll talk about this later on, about whether it's everything within that goal, whether or not we can achieve it, and whether it's controllable. Studying for 30 minutes before every session, the kind of the outcome goal is to overall be better at poker, understand situations better, be more confident at the table, something like that. So the process would be study for 30 minutes every session, before every session as a good warm up. Maybe you wanted to be in the zone and ready to go straight away when you played your first hand. So studying or doing some sort of warm up for 30 minutes before every session is going to be a good way of doing that. Losing 15 pounds then, you could then link that one to going to the gym 4 times a week. Playing 400 tournaments every month and could be linked into winning 25 grand playing poker this year. So, you have to give yourself the best possible chance to achieve that goal. So you can kind of break it down. I'm going to give you some better examples and more ideas about this as we move forward. So outcome goals then versus process goals. An outcome goal is the overall result that we wish to achieve. For example, winning the World Series of Poker main event or going on holiday. We don't have 100% control over our outcome goals, but we do absolutely have complete control over the process goals. You can't control the amount of money you're going to win from poker this year, but you can control things like how many hours you study and the content of your study time, how many games you play and the specific games you choose to play. So game selection, really important. How much time you spend in the gym, what you decide to focus on, how often you meditate, how are you working on your mindset, all of these different things that you can, set a goal around and focus on that. And that's going to be much more beneficial to you for your poker game. So process goals then. Here's a quote from Jason Kuhn. Big goals are great, but when you get there, it probably won't be as sweet as what you'd hoped. Build your goals around the process. Be in love with the day-to-day work. This mindset keeps you present, hungry, and full of gratitude. So I absolutely love this quote, and I think it's really, really important and how you should be sort of approaching every single day. And that's why I broke it down at the start to sort of talk about long-term goals, like the big picture goals. And then what are you doing every single day to get you to where you want to be? So elite players set process-orientated goals, oriented if you're in North America. They get very specific about what skills they need to master in order to get what they want. And they believe and trust in the process. So you can be going on a pretty bad downswing, but if you're still turning up, you're still hitting the gym, you're eating well, you're putting the time in on and off the felt, then you've got to believe and trust in the process. And you've got to recognize there are certain things out of your control. So talking of that, controllable variables then. Whenever we set goals, they must be things that are under our control. So controllable variables include things like how many games you play, so the volume of games you play each month, time spent studying, time spent in focus study, the reps, drills, and time spent meditating, etc. And there's lots of different examples, but these are things that you can control. You can't control whether you're going to win a flip with the last 12 players in a tournament. You can't say whether or not you're going to get set over set on the final table. You just can't control these things. But there are lots of things that you can control. So I want you to forget about profit goals or winning a bracelet. That's something that we all want to do, but it's investing in the process and the discipline that requires. That is way more important, and the results are definitely going to follow if you're doing all of this. So I think it's really important to align your goals and your actions. I see this time and time again where people say they want to do something, but they don't actually back that up with action. So your goals must be aligned with your actions. If you say you want to improve and be the best poker player you can be, and we're not talking about, okay, we're not saying you have to be the best poker player in the world, but the best poker player that you can be, then you must back that up with actions. You are honestly lying to yourself about wanting to be the best if you ever do things like this. Turn up late or unprepared to study sessions, passively watch only one training video each week, or haphazardly play sessions without review. Now, I just want to say here that it's okay if that's what you want to do. You know, if you don't want to take things seriously, you want to sort of approach it in a kind of, recreational amateur way, then that's fine. Like, absolutely fine. But it's really important that you recognize that if you're not putting the time in on and off the table, then you can't really complain when you're not getting the results. Let's talk about disconnecting poker goals from other goals. So generally then we have an overall vision of what you want to achieve in life. And that means that everything has to point towards that sort of overall vision. And then everything has to be aligned. So disconnecting your poker goals and separating them from everything else is a clear mistake. So we're now going to talk about areas to focus on when goal setting. These are all taken from this Inspire Now journal. So I don't want to say that I invented these topic headings, but these are some ideas of where you might want to set goals and then how we might link them into to poker. So career and finance, health and wellness, personal development and learning, family and social, physical environment, and spiritual. So you might look at these and already have some ideas about how poker fits into this. So for example, career and finance, you want to start, making more money in poker so that it can subsidize your income. It can give you a second income. It can provide holidays or, luxuries that you wouldn't be able to afford with your regular job, for example. Health and wellness, you could think about, getting enough sleep so that you can perform really, really well. Looking at, going to the gym, eating well. Personal development and learning, I mean, that's studying the game, right? It's really, really obvious how you could link poker into that. Family and social, I think, is really, really important when it comes to trying to develop sort of having a poker life and having a real life. And I think, again, a lot of the time, the two get disconnected. And I think what we really should do is make sure that we're, setting appropriate goals to, spend more time or spend enough time with family and making sure that we, still getting out and having a social life and finding that balance between everything, right? So, your social life, family, going to the gym, playing poker. Maybe you've got a full-time job, you're not a professional poker player. That's that sort of thing. Like, it's hard to balance all of that. And that's where having goals and having focus with all of these goals and making sure they all align is really, really important. Physical environment, I mean, I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but maybe, the place where you study or the place where you play, it's not conducive to learning. Maybe you study at the dining table and you've got the kids running in and it's just really tough to study. And I think it's, these are things that you can, definitely improve on. And then spiritual is going to look at, meditation, things like that. So let's run through the 6 topics in a bit more detail. So career and finance then, what would you like to achieve in your career and financial situation? What income do you need to support your ideal life? And how could you create that wealth? So within poker, you might have an idea about, how much income you'd like to make, but we are at the mercy of variance. So it's not always a great goal to be looking at. But if you're thinking about how you could create that wealth, I don't think this is going to be the webinar for me to tell you about other ways in which you can, you can make money and support your family and things like that. But obviously, I think a lot of you and a lot of us get into poker because we want to make money from it. So you might be having goals around, as I said before, sort of side income and something to support your current job. Health and wellness then, what steps would you take to be healthier? What could you do to be in the best shape you can? And again, it's the best shape that you can possibly be, not, comparing yourself to anybody else. it comes to personal development and learning, then what could you learn to improve the chances of achieving your career goals? So if you are currently working and your goal is to be a professional poker player, then what do you need to do? What are the steps and what's the process to get to where you want to be? And so what do you need to learn in order to do that? And again, what would you like to learn or do to support your personal development? Family and social then, what do you want to create, change, or improve with your family, your friends, and your social life? And how could you improve your social relations? Physical environment, what would you change about your physical environment? And that can be, where you live, but also looking at where you play, where you study. Some people are going to study really well in a coffee shop. Some people are going to study in absolute silence in their office, and it has to be what's right for you. Do you like where you live? Does the environment you live in support your vision for life? So I don't think it's unrealistic to have like big expectations of where you'd like to live and living in, a better house. But also, when we look at it, is a bigger house going to be, beneficial? Why do we look at like having a bigger house or a better car or a fancy watch or better clothes or a more attractive person on our arm? Like, why is that important to us? And I think that's probably the bigger question. And again, probably not really the purpose of this webinar. But sometimes you have to recognize that actually, we can be grateful for a lot of things that we have in life, and we don't necessarily need things to be bigger or better, right? Okay, and then spiritual, what do you do to look after the inner you? How do you want to motivate and improve yourself emotionally? So when you're thinking about poker, I mean, motivation is going to have to come from within for all of this, and also sort of working on your mindset and being okay with, losing a decent amount of the time. If you play tournament poker, you've got to be okay with losing a decent chunk of the time. Okay, so I'm going to pause the webinar there and just see if anybody has any questions right now. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions, so we will move on. Okay. So setting smart goals. Goals must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant or realistic, and time-bound or time-specific. Okay? So how do we make our goals specific? Well, we've got to make them clear and well-defined, and then have a really good idea about what are the outcomes. What do you want to be able to do at the end, or how will you know when you've achieved your goal? How do we make them measurable then? You need to have a tangible method for tracking and measuring progress. We looked at this within the Game Changer program, always setting the sort of, okay, this is where you're at now, this is your target, and then you can measure your progress towards that target. You want to make it really, really obvious when you have achieved your goal. How do we make them attainable then? You've got to make sure that your goals are those that you can and will do. Don't be unrealistic. And it says the next point here, make sure you're realistic with your expectations of what you can achieve in terms of time, money, effort, resources. And if you work full time, then studying for 8 hours a day is probably unattainable and an unrealistic goal. How do you make them relevant then? Make sure you're working towards things that are going to matter to your success, okay? Not anybody else. Don't worry about anybody else or comparing yourself to others. What are you going to do how is it relevant to you? And how is it going to help you succeed? Relevant goals are ones that are important to your individual progress. Focus on things that will make a difference so you use your time efficiently. And then answer this question. Why do you really want to achieve this goal? Why is it important to you? And then finally, making your goals time-bound. Set clear timeframes for achieving your goals. Have clear deadlines, because they're going to be really helpful and important for success. Okay. So now I'm going to look at examples of poor goals. Now, some of these might be familiar because you wrote them. So we're going to look at these goals now and see how we can improve them. So here's some examples then. Play within bankroll, fold more to 3-bets, open more from late position, learn guitar, lose weight, study more, final table 4 Sunday majors, top 100 in the world on Pocket 5 rankings, read more, make 25 grand this year from poker. But just let me know in the chat if any of these sound familiar. Okay, so a few of you have sort of said, yeah, things like folding to 3-bets more and open more. definitely. One of you said, don't think they're mine. So this isn't one person's goals. This is taken from lots of you. Okay. So let's now have a look at examples of good goals then, and then we'll have a look at how to improve on those sort of poor or bad goals. So good goals then need to be smart, as we went through. They need to be focused on things you can control and on the process and not the outcome. So examples of good goals then: play 320 MTTs this month at $20 ABI average buy-in, broken down as 4 sessions per week with set schedule of 20 MTTs per session. You can go even more detail with this if you wanted to, and say just regular speed, no turbos, no hyper turbos, no satellites, something like that. You could almost say, okay, the set schedule, you come up with that at the start of each week or the start of each session. Spend 60 minutes in the gym 3 times per week, focusing on the 12-week program, shortcut to size. So really specific. It's definitely time bound. It's really obvious when you achieve it. These are, at the end of the day, the small goals that are helping you to get to where you want to be. So you're going to know whether you've gone to the gym 60 minutes 3 times a week, right? And so it's definitely smart. Finally, then spend 45 minutes per day working on grade 6 piano scales and repertoire with 1 piece at performance standard by the end of the month. Cool. All right. So let's have a look at some of these poor goals and let's see if we can improve them. So with all of these, what I've done is I've come up with a series of questions. So if any of these are familiar, then hopefully these questions will help you come up with better goals. So play within bankroll. So what's your current bankroll? What bankroll management guidelines have you set yourself? So here's a quick example. Say you've got a $2,000 bankroll, you've got a 200 buy-in rule. So you're only going to play $10 MTTs. So your goal is going to be only play tournaments where the buy-in is $10 or under. And you'll be able to say whether or not you've achieved that because, you might look at the end of the month and say, oh, hang on a minute, I, tilt registered a 109 in here. And you have to, recognize that, okay, maybe I didn't achieve my goal this month. So this is really a goal around discipline. And, you'll know whether or not you have achieved it. You might want to make this time bound as well. So I only play tournaments this month where the buy-in is $10 or under, is probably a better idea. 4 more to 3 bets, then you need to be more specific. We talk about this in our book, and this is a shameless plug now for Purposeful Practice for Poker. But you need to be more specific, and that's sort of the idea behind purposeful practice or deliberate practice, is being much more specific and focused with your study. How are you going to know you've achieved this goal? So the question is, what's your current fold to 3-bet statistic, and what's the target? And make sure that you have, your current number and where you're aiming for. What are you going to do? So what's the process to achieve this goal? And that's what I really want to, home in on here. So as an example, then filter for 10 spots per day in your database where you face a 3-bet, cutoff versus button, and work out the optimum continuing frequency. Then mark 5 hands during my session where I folded to review at the end of the session. Then you could say, actually review the hands, post them on Discord, ask for feedback. Learn guitar then. Again, not specific enough. What are you actually learning? What are the steps you need to take to get to where you want to be? Having a better vision of what you want to be able to do on the guitar is going to be pretty helpful here. How will you know when you've achieved your goals? If you don't really know what they are, if you've got this sort of broad learn the guitar, then, you could spend 5 minutes and you might learn one thing. Does that mean you've learned the guitar? What's the end point? Where do you want to be? Do you want to be able to play pieces? Do you want to be able to impress your friends? Do you want to just be able to play for fun? It's really important that you have an idea about what you want to do. And this goes for like learning a language, learning poker, learning another instrument, learning to cook, or getting better at cooking. All of these different things that you can learn as it's kind of a hobby, right? So spending 30 minutes per day practicing grade 1 guitar, focusing on scales for 10 minutes and repertoire for 20 in order to play the pieces by the end of the month. Losing weight then, again, not specific enough. How much weight do you want to lose? Why is it important to you to lose that weight? What steps are you going to take to lose the weight? And we're looking here at things like goals around exercise, diet, discipline, and motivation. So a good goal here, let's say, you wanted to lose the weight. And one of you might see this and think it's a fantastic goal because you wrote it. Complete the Couch to 5K running program over the next 9 weeks with a part run on March the 28th. Woo! Okay. Study more then. Again, not specific enough. Just not a good goal. It's just really difficult to measure. And yeah. How are you going to know when you've achieved this goal? Why is it important to you? So again, it's got to link back to what, the sort of the overarching vision that you have for your life and for what you want to achieve within poker and outside. So plan and complete 4 30-minute sessions every week where I have focused study time, focusing on, for example, folding versus c-bets after defending in the big blind. Okay, next one then, final table for Sunday majors. Again, why is this important to you? Is this kind of an ego thing? Is this proving to yourself that it's possible? Is this, next point is really important. Is it actually controllable? So you can have an idea, okay, in the next year, I want to final table 4 Sunday majors on PokerStars, but is that actually controllable? Like you can do everything you can for that to happen, but you're still at the mercy of the poker gods to some extent. When's the end point? We want to be looking at final tabling 4 Sunday majors in the next 12 months, for example. What do you need to do in order to get there? So kind of, this is an interesting goal because I don't necessarily think it's a very good goal, but if it sort of motivates you to turn up on a Sunday where it can be the sort of most brutal day of the year, where the field sizes are huge, but if you do well, then you will end up making lots of money, then great, So in order to give yourself the best possible shot at final tabling 4 Sunday majors, you'd have to have a clear and detailed study regime, and you'd have to play a series of Sunday majors every single year. So, you can't have the goal of final table 4 Sunday majors if you're going to play, 4 Sunday majors a year. All right. So that's pretty unrealistic. And I think it's just worth mentioning. Next one then, top 100 in the world on Pocket Fives rankings. Again, why is this goal important to you? What's going to come of you being top 100 in the world on Pocket Fives? I mean, you'll be able to post it on Twitter and people will be able to see it. But is that, does that sit with your overall vision for what you want to achieve in the game? What's the process to getting there? So again, this is, if this is going to motivate you to put the volume in on and off the felt, then great. So we can look at volume, again, clear and detailed study regime. And then, you're going to have to turn up, to play a lot of sessions in order to make top 100. Depends obviously what buy-in level you're currently at. So you've got to make sure that your diet's on point. You're getting plenty of exercise, making sure you're meditating. Your mindset's got to be really good. You've got to be performing to the best of your ability every single time you turn up. Reading more then, again, not specific. How are you going to measure this goal? Then work out, why is reading more important to you? So this is a question that keeps coming up on these goals. Work out why this goal is important to you and how it links into what you want to achieve. What are you actually going to read? And here's an example. Read 1 nonfiction book every month this year. Okay, I think this is the final one. Making 25 grand from poker this year. Is that actually controllable? Let's see if we can answer that. Is making 25 grand this year from poker controllable? Let me know in the chat. Okay, so it's absolutely not controllable. And then there's a really good point here. Not without a solid plan that gives you a good shot of getting there. Absolutely. So again, what's the process? What are the steps to getting there? And here's just an example. If you played 6,000 games, you just need to make $4 roughly a game. And that's just going to be a 25% ROI at $16.67 average buy-in. So if your current game, let's say you're playing like $15 to $20 games, and your ROI is 25%, then all you need to do is turn up and play 6,000 games in a year, and you'll be able to make 25 grand. So if your goal is to make 25 grand and you're playing, $2 games and you play 100 a month, then it's completely unrealistic and it's not going to happen. So again, you have to work out sort of have a realistic idea about how much you want to make, and then work out, okay, what can I do to give myself the best possible shot at achieving this goal? And then finally, I just want to put here, hope to be on the right side of variance. So, you can play 6,000 games with a $16.67 ABI with a 25% ROI and still not make 25 grand. Just don't want to be a dampener there, but you know, you are again at the mercy of variance. Cool. So pretty rapid webinar. I'm going to have some time for some questions at the end, but we're already at the point of the summary. So setting goals help you to become the best possible version or vision of yourself. Process goals are controllable and more important. Focus on different areas of your life, not just poker. Make sure everything's linked together. Make sure your goals are smart. Connect your poker goals to your non-poker goals. And then we had a look at how to write effective goals. So your homework then is to write out your long-term goals. What's the big picture? What do you really want to achieve? And again, you don't just have to think about poker. Think about the whole thing. You know, what do you want to achieve in terms of relationships, family, you know, where you live, all of these different things that we talked about earlier on. Write out your short-term goals that are going to help you achieve your long-term goals. So there's this, you know, this is the process, and obviously we said the word process a lot during this webinar, but you write your long-term goals and then you write the short-term goals that are going to help you get there in the next sort of 2 to 10 years. Make sure your goals are controllable and process-orientated. Really, really important. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those goals within Discord. Finally then, are there any questions? Like, do any of you want to give me a goal and I can help you, you know, come up with a more smart, controllable, process-orientated way of approaching it? But any questions at all, just let me know. Okay, so it doesn't look like there are any questions. So hopefully that means that the goals you're going to post are going to be really effective and process orientated and things that are going to really help you kick on. Finally, I guess one thing I'd like to see from more of you is at the end of every single month, just noting down where you've achieved your goals, how things went. You know, maybe things didn't go so well, and that's okay. Like, we need to review, we need to reflect every single month. So if you can start, you know, putting your goals into Discord, but also at the end of the month, just saying, okay, things didn't go well. This is the reason why. This is what I'm going to do next month to improve. Or, okay, this went really well. This is what happened. And, you know, we want to be celebrating success. We also want to be really focused on, you know, those continuous improvements every single day. They're going to help you get to where you want to be. So we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you for tuning in, and I will be back very soon for the next webinar. So take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.